Today I'm reviewing a family home in Oslo, Norway with a ton of personality. It's got some really cool Scandinavian influences all throughout the home and a fiery core right in the center that I think you're gonna like. So let's check out this house and see what's inside. So as you first arrive to this home, you enter through the front garden, which is honestly a pretty cool approach. You walk across the grass, up these steps, and you're immediately on this massive deck where you can imagine during these Norwegian summers where the daylight just lasts all night, you can imagine yourself sitting out here, having some aquavit, and hanging out on the deck, right? It's just such a good place to spend time. And there's also so much green up here. This is a lemon tree as far as I can tell, which is not something I expected to see in Oslo, and in the foreground here, this is an apple tree, and there's also tons of other plants around, so the overall vibe is deeply connected to nature. Obviously, one of the big focal points here is this massive striped umbrella, which offers shade to quite a large section of the deck. Not that Norwegians need any more shade, but it's still something for the 2 or 3 days a year when it does get hot there. And then we've obviously got this big picnic style table, which is perfect for outdoor dining with family and friends on summer evenings. But just behind the table are these bifold doors that open up the entire wall and transform the living room into an indoor-outdoor space. And so as we look at the living room, it's painted this similar buttermilk yellow to what we saw on the exterior of the home, and you're gonna see a lot of yellow in here, so get prepared for that. But even though you can't see it great from this angle, the ceiling here is actually sloping upward, and so it makes the space feel a lot taller and more open than a typical 1950s home. And then these 4 square windows at the back bring in even more natural light from the other side of the house, which makes the living room even brighter, which is especially valuable in the shorter winter months. And with that said, I also want to point out all the beautiful shadows you get in this place that move all throughout the day, not only because the sun is moving across the sky, but also because this room is full of plants. And so as they grow and move as the wind comes through these big doors here, you're gonna have this dancing ensemble of shadows on your walls and floor, which creates a really nice atmosphere in a living room like this. And they've also got these cobalt blue velvet pillows that match the cobalt blue rattan chair and this beautiful deep red rug that just defines this zone in the living room and contrasts so perfectly with the terrazzo floors. And they've definitely made the right choice here in going with terrazzo, both because it's durable in case you're walking in from outside with shoes on, but also because it provides a neutral backdrop for all the other colors in this room, because there really are a lot of colors in here, but somehow they managed to make things still look good. So the room is cheerful in a Scandinavian sort of way, but it's also way more colorful and personality driven than you'd find in a typical Nordic minimalist home, like the kinds of apartments you see in central Copenhagen or Stockholm. But now let's step up these stairs into the kitchen, which is still in the same open space, but because it's a couple steps elevated, it really feels like a bit of a different zone. But even still in here, they've got nearly 4-meter or 12-foot ceilings with these exposed honeytone beams that give the space a lot of warmth. And the cabinetry and kitchen island are done in this pale ash with a nice matte finish that looks really sleek and natural. And then the walls are painted in this soft pistachio green, which gives them a fresh, distinctive look without being overpowering. Now, I told you to expect a lot of yellow in this home, and the kitchen does not disappoint, with these glossy mustard tiles that reflect so much light. And I find it interesting that they decided to arrange the tiles vertically here, because generally you'd see these tiles horizontal on the backsplash, but it looks really good this way, and it makes the space feel even taller because of those lines running up and down. Now, to be honest, they don't have that much room in this kitchen, but given that it's just for a single family, I think they'll be able to make do. If they've got a pantry around the corner, then that would be ideal, since there isn't that much space to store all the dishes and food that a family needs here, especially in Norway, where they probably want to have a large chest freezer to store food for the winter. But maybe they have that in the garage or somewhere else. But one thing they definitely made space for here is this massive fireplace. Again, wrapped in the same vertical mustard colored tiles. I think this thing looks amazing. You know, this is obviously the centerpiece of the home and such an asset to have for those long Norwegian winters. I know growing up, we always had a wood burning fireplace in our homes, and we would use it every day for months on end. And having a place to store the firewood built right in next to the fireplace was a really smart design move, so that you don't need to constantly go grab it from wherever you're storing it outside. And adding this border of terrazzo floors was smart here too, just in case some sparks fly off the fire when you open it up, because you don't want that leaving marks on your beautiful wood floors. And overall, positioning the fireplace between the kitchen, the living room, and the dining room was a brilliant move, because when mom's cooking in the evenings and the kids are hanging out in the living room, they're all able to benefit from the warmth and they don't need to change their lifestyle to adapt to it. So overall, I love the kitchen and it's perfectly built for the kind of family who would live here. Now, as we move into the dining room, we've got those same exposed wood beam ceilings that we saw in the kitchen, which gives both spaces a nice sense of continuity. And the dining table here is this very simple ash table with tapered legs that bring in that mid-century Scandinavian feel. And the surrounding chairs are wooden as well, but they're stained black with those circular seats and curved backs that give you that instantly recognizable Nordic silhouette. Then along the far wall, there's a built-in bench with teal cushions sitting on top of an ash base, which offers plenty of storage underneath and actually works really well to add in some extra seating without crowding the room. And one really cool element of the dining room is the window behind that bench, which not only brings in a ton of natural light, but also offers a connection with the outdoors. Because whether the sun is shining or the snow is falling, you get this really unique vantage point that offers privacy for anyone inside, but also a little bit of fun. I think it's a great element and I love that they've included it here. Now, above the table, there are these two golden pendant lights that almost look like stacked honeycomb discs hanging down, and they're going to light the table beautifully in the evenings. And I'm not surprised that they went with yellow here because it ties right into the palette of the rest of this home. Even though they've got quite a bit of color throughout the home, it doesn't feel overdone. It's not like you're bombarded with color. Instead, it just feels tasteful, and you can tell someone thought about saturation and balance. So you still get the fun and personality from all these tones, but it lands the right way instead of feeling loud or busy. But if we just twist 90 degrees here, on this side of the dining room, they've got this really cozy sitting nook with a dark green Noguchi style coffee table and this dark leather lounge chair, which is actually the chieftain chair from Familien, who's one of the most well-respected Scandinavian furniture designers of all time. The bird of paradise plant in the corner adds some height and liveliness to the room, and this gorgeous pendant light hanging over the coffee table is going to cast some really nice soft light in the evenings. You can see how the colors in this sitting area just work so well. The muted pistachio green on the walls complements the green on the bird of paradise, and the black on the coffee table and lounge chair contrasts beautifully with the white curtains and the cream rug. And then everything gets tied together by the natural textures of the wooden window frame and the terracotta planter. It's just such a well-executed little corner, and I'm certain this area gets used all the time. And speaking of layout, think of how smartly everything's been designed. We saw the living room when we first came inside, then the kitchen, then the dining room with the reading nook, and now here in the den. And they're all positioned directly around this central fireplace. And because the bedrooms are upstairs, the warm air will rise up to keep them warm as well. So the designers were very deliberate in making sure that the fireplace was right at the center of this home, and that was exactly the right choice. Now, I love that they've created their own little nook here in the den by painting the walls in this pastel orange and breaking away from the green that we've seen throughout the rest of this level. But the important thing is, by softening the wall color like that, they bought themselves the right to go with this plum colored sofa, which almost shines in the sunlight, but it totally works in here. And because the ceiling drops a bit in this room, they also made another right move by choosing a low slung sofa so you stay close to the floor and never feel compressed, even though the room is smaller than everywhere else. They've obviously got kids in this home, so the artwork here makes sense, but if you were living here just as adults, you could remove what's on the right wall next to the window and replace the piece straight ahead with something like a landscape painting that ties back to the piece we saw in the dining room. But I can really imagine that in the winter, this is the part of the home where the family cozies up and spends their quality time, because it's just around the corner from the kitchen where they can grab drinks and snacks, and because it's got this dropped ceiling and sits right next to the fireplace, so it's going to be the warmest spot in the house. Plus, they've put in this rug, which I don't like the looks of, to be honest, and I think they should have gone with something more like the one in the reading nook. But the thing they did get right is giving it some texture, because that's going to keep their feet warm and help keep the entire room warm, which is perfect for this little nook. Because remember, you want to make sure that every space in your home will get used. And I think in the winter months, this space will probably get used a lot more than the living room we saw next to the kitchen, because that one is much more exposed to the elements with those big glass doors along the front wall, so it just won't be as warm as it is here. So I applaud them for taking this small space and turning it into something that will actually get used. Now, before we head upstairs, I just want to point out this little hallway that connects the entire home. Because from this angle, you've got the fireplace on your left and the kitchen on your right, with this display of plants and ceramics mounted on the wall ahead of you. But when you turn this way, you've got another shelving unit on your left, and then straight ahead is the den we just saw. And so now you should be able to understand that the fireplace is like the central core of the home, with everything extending out from it. And it's not even built into a wall. It's just right in the middle, beaming out heat in every direction. But it also gives off a lot of light, because with these bright yellow tiles and the natural light hitting it from every direction, it amplifies the amount of light that reaches into every part of the home. So rather than putting mirrors on here, which would have looked weird and gotten dirty very fast, going with these vibrant tiles was a really good choice. Okay, now let's take a quick look at the kids' rooms. I'm not going to spend a lot of time in here, but it is worth taking a look at to see what's possible with kids' bedrooms. So in the daughter's room, they use a soft blush pink on the walls, and it's got vaulted ceilings up here as well, because they actually removed the attic to make the upstairs bedrooms extra spacious. And there's not too much going on in here, but I should point out that the little table light you see on the bedside table isn't some modern TikTok trend. It's actually the flower pot lamp, which was designed way back in the 1960s by Werner Panton. And the flower pot lamp became a symbol of the flower power era, when interior design was reacting against cold industrial modernism and trying to bring more optimism into everyday life. So it really makes a lot of sense for a young girl's room like this. And then the son's room uses the same pistachio green from downstairs, but they also built in a lofted bed, which I'm sure he has a lot of fun with. I know when I was young, this would have been a dream, but I actually want you to pay attention to how the room is styled in a way that's fun, but not overly childish. Because the desk has this deep, rich green that's just as relevant for a teenage boy as it is for a young boy, and the shelving unit is a really nice color as well, but still super functional at the same time. So they've really managed to balance functionality with aesthetics in here, and make these bedrooms into places the kids are going to want to spend time in. But now let's take a look at the master bedroom, and there's stuff that I like and stuff that I don't like in here. Now, I actually looked these up because I thought maybe these were made by their kids and so they had some sentimental value to them, but these tapestries are actually a fun, modern take on traditional Nordic wool tapestries that were handcrafted by the designers themselves, who are the parents living in this home. And so there is some sentimental value there. All I'm gonna say is that I wouldn't have chosen them for my home because I don't think they fit with the room. They've done such a good job all throughout the home of balancing fun colors with a classy, timeless look, but in my view, they've overdone it here. Anyway, my opinion doesn't matter because it's their art, and if they want it here, they can have it. But other than these tapestries, what I'd say they have done well in here is they've created this calm atmosphere with the soft cream walls and this skylight above the bed. And then at the foot of the bed, they've got a floor-to-ceiling wardrobe that's been custom built to fit the shape of the room. Now, they also have this side table that's kind of awkwardly sitting in front of that wardrobe, so I don't really know what's going on there. They've probably just put it there for the photo shoot because I can't imagine that it's sitting in front of the wardrobe all the time. But what's a much bigger problem is that this is a really small bedroom. There's hardly any space on either side of the bed, and as far as I can tell, there's no more space in here aside from what we've already seen. So I think this is probably the one area in the home where they really feel space constrained. And with this in mind, I might have actually suggested a change in here. In my view, I think it might have made more sense to put the son's bedroom downstairs where they've got that really bold couch, since it seems like he's the older of the two children, or they could put the bathroom, which we're going to see next, down there. Because right now, I can't imagine that the parents feel particularly good in this bedroom. It's just too tight, and no one wants to feel claustrophobic in their own home. So this, for me, is maybe the one big design flaw of this place, which is just not having enough space for the parents. But now let's move into the bathroom, which I really like here. It's fully tiled in this matte forest green that's very similar to the other greens we've seen throughout the home, and it's got white above, which creates this serene, spa-like feeling. They've got this light Durat tub and the matching vanity that give the room some weight, and with these matte black fixtures, the color palette in here ends up being pretty striking, because it's still really natural with green, black, and some light neutrals, but it still feels really good in here. And by putting some plants next to the window and above the vanity, it livens up the space a bit and makes it feel that much warmer. But I also want to point out what they've done to achieve so much natural light in here, because not only do they have a large window next to the vanity, but they also have another window high up above the bathtub and a skylight that lets additional light pour in. So they've really maximized the amount of light they'll get in here, which is something so many people miss in their bathrooms. But stepping back for a second, what can we learn from this home? Number one, if you have the opportunity to blend indoors with outdoors, take it. They did an amazing job here with these bifold doors that open up the living room to the deck and yard beyond, which creates such a vibrant space and gives them so many opportunities to entertain and enjoy the outdoors. And keep in mind, this home is in Oslo, so if you're living in a more temperate climate, which you almost certainly are, this is absolutely something you can take inspiration from. Yes, it's not a weekend project, but it is the kind of change that will completely transform your relationship with your home. And I applaud them for executing this so well here. Second is the layout. They made an intentional choice to put the fireplace right in the center of the home. And by doing that, you can see it from every corner of the public areas: the living room, the dining room, the kitchen, and the den. So whether it's just your family spending time together or you've got guests over, the fireplace becomes this shared visual and emotional anchor for the entire home. And people will remember it. So not only is it strategically functional, but it looks amazing too. And third, make sure you think about your home through the lens of where it is in the world. This is a Scandinavian home, and they've really leaned into that. There's ash wood everywhere, which is a staple of Nordic design, but there's also Scandinavian furniture and decor sprinkled all throughout this home. So if you're designing or remodeling your own home, think about it through that lens. What context does your home sit in? Because a city center penthouse should not look the same as a lakeside lodge. Yes, your home should express its own personality, but it also needs to be connected to its physical surroundings in a way that makes sense. So I'm reviewing a ton of homes like this one, so make sure you subscribe if you want to see more videos like these. And I've left links to a few other beautiful homes in the description, so if you're buying or remodeling your own home, then you'll know exactly how to do it. And if you want to see a really cool apartment that uses some design elements you've never seen anywhere else, check out this video up here. If you like this home, you'll definitely like that one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the comments.